Welcome to the CE Pro podcast. I'm Executive Editor Arlen Schweiger. Talk about a company that headed into 2022 with some momentum. Colorado-based Logic Integration recently earned 2 Integrator of the Year accolades, one from the CTA Smart Home Division Mark of Excellence Awards, and the other from CE Pro's sister publication Commercial Integrator. What does it take to pull off an impressive double like that? Founder and CEO Shawn Hansson shared insights with me in this week's episode. As always, be sure to subscribe to CE Pro's YouTube channel and hit that like button on our videos, or subscribe to the CE Pro podcast on Apple and Spotify and leave a review. Shawn Hansson, CEO and founder of Logic Integration, based in Lone Tree, Colorado. Thanks for joining the CE Pro podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So Shawn, Logic Integration recently garnered a couple of industry accolades, being honored as the CTA Smart Home Division Mark of Excellence Integrator of the Year, also named Integrator of the Year by CE Pro's sister publication, Commercial Integrator. Just to get started here, Shawn, for those who are unfamiliar with your company, which has long been in the industry, just, if you can start by telling us about the company's size, your scope of work, your solutions, and markets served, things like that.
Sure. Yeah, I started Logic Integration in 2004 out of my minivan in a garage. Kicked my wife out of the garage, her car, and made it the warehouse. We're a 27-person company, about $7 million a year. And we're about 60-40, so 60% commercial, 40% residential. And our commercial scope of work is not light commercial. It's actually very heavy commercial. We do a lot of executive boardrooms, video walls, network operations centers, lots of meeting spaces, huddle rooms, or cuddle rooms as we call them at our company. And on the residential side, we do custom homes, custom integration, smart home stuff, and then we do a little bit of work with some production builders as well.
Right, and just judging from your website, you can see with some of your commercial clients, people are going to recognize the names of some of the companies that you have as clients, and clearly doing a lot of heavy lifting for those customers. How has the company evolved over the year to where it has excelled to be recognized in both of these categories for on the residential and commercial integration industry sides?
Sure, it's definitely been a find our way process over the past 18 years. We first started, we did primarily residential, and then in 2008, we hit commercial really, really heavily. We kind of saw the writing on the wall with the housing market and the crash, and luckily, switched over early. I got rid of my top residential salesperson, one of the most difficult things I've ever done, and then did heavy commercial, and then really split the fence for quite a while. And we've always split the fence between commercial and residential. A few years we really swung heavily into commercial, but over the past 2-3 years, our residential business has grown substantially, especially during COVID. So the trick has been having training and certifications for both sides. We really do keep our staff separate, so we have separate project managers, separate technicians for both sides, both markets.
So let's dig in a little bit more to the commercial side of things, and it, just the way that you guys recognize that was pretty remarkable to begin with. But what was that process like for integrators who are looking to do more commercial work, more resi-mercial work? And I know you were recently joined the panel that we had down at the CE Pro Summit to dive into that topic a little bit more. But what was that process like? What were some of the pain points? What were some of the benefits? New partnerships, relationships, things like that.
So my background is professional audio. So I went to San Jose State University and studied audio engineering, doing live sound and recording and music and all that kind of stuff. I'm a musician, so I was very comfortable in the commercial space, doing working with those types of tools. So I think maybe that helped the process. However, we saw kind of a bridge between, when we would work in a C-level or an executive's house, and they would say, hey, I really don't like our conference room technology. It's difficult to use. When I come and do meetings, things don't always work. Can you come take a look at it? And the fundamentals of AV and signal flow are very similar, almost the same in both markets. However, they're very different as well. We have seen in the past and even recently, a residential integrator will put a surround sound receiver into running a boardroom, you know, and maybe putting a residential control system on top. So we we basically sat down and said, okay, what do we need staff wise and certification wise to do this right? We really tried not to half ass it. We might not have been perfect at it, but that's what we did. We sought after, back then it was, Infocom and CTS certified folks, and that's what we did. We did recruiting for commercial technicians, leads, level 1, 2, and 3, and it was a challenge and it was expensive. It was very risky to bring on those folks, and they really did not want to touch residential. so so if the workload was light and we would say, hey, we don't have any commercial work today, will you do residential? That was always a tough conversation, but luckily that didn't happen that long.
What about the project procurement process and bids and things like that? I know you mentioned, clearly you had some of those, C-level customers on the residential side that, enabled projects that way. But as you got more into it, what was that process like? And what were some of the things you learned that, I don't know if anything was applicable going back to the residential business, in terms of dealing with those kind of things of winning bids. But what was that experience like?
It was fun and challenging. You know, um, a, a lot of the commercial clientele that we work with has net 30 or net 60 terms. So proper financing, line of credit, all those things are very important. But if you call up Harman or you call up QSC and just, I want to be a dealer. What do you guys do now? Well, I do residential. That was a tough conversation. So in the beginning, like many, we bought things through distribution and kind of made it work until we did enough volume. Um, Signing up for government portals, ExoStar, working with Lockheed Martin and the US Army and the Navy and all those kinds of folks was really, really a big learning curve. But in order to do business with folks like that, you have to do that stuff. So I really did network a lot here in Colorado and in Denver with other business owners and CEOs that did government work a lot, that, they were either 8A companies winning government awards, things like that. But I'll tell you, we really try to stay away from bid work. We actually have never really done a lot of bid work. We do some, but if there's more than 3 bidders, we usually don't show up to the table.
Okay, so a lot of it really is about those connections and networking that you made, and probably a lot of word of mouth too, as certainly a
Yep.
lot of the residential business has grown for many integrators out there.
We're very clear that we are a design build company. And if there is a bidding situation, we always will tell the customer, even in the first meeting, first site walk, that we're not the highest, we're not the lowest, we're actually usually in the middle. But we are the highest sometimes. So how do we create value for potential customers? It's the people, it's the process, it's service. So if people can come visit our facility, we tour them around, we let them meet the finance person, the manager, the service manager. You know what? You're going to be talking with this guy in 3 or 4 months, because after we're done with the project, he's going to come visit your site and onboard you onto our service portal. And here's how you submit a ticket. Do you want to text? Do you want to email? So I think a big customer like a Lockheed Martin or Comcast or any of those folks, they have used the big integrators before, but the fact they can know people's names at our company and they get the same few technicians that know the site and remember where they ran the cabling and know where the drawings are and all that, there's a real big benefit in the sales process. So the other room actually that we spend most time in at our office is the rack building room. Here's where we build all your racks. We laser engrave everything. We do it all here. We try to commission programs, software update, all that stuff.
So it sounds like the residential experience really kind of um, sort of facilitated your commercial access, maybe if I have that right, where with on the resi side, you were already doing the full process, the full system design
Yeah.
into the installation, and already probably showing those customers that you had the same kind of insights into, here's who you're going to meet from the team, here's what things are going to look like a little bit behind the scenes, all that stuff.
But it goes both ways. So we worked with some of you listening probably know of Navigate Consulting, Brad Malone, and those folks over there. They work with companies that were $5 million to $100 million a year. They're a consulting firm. They specialize in project management, finance, and sales. And Brad McNutt, or oh my gosh, I totally just forgot his name. His last name is McNutt. Anyways, I
Malone.
don't. Yeah. They helped us take well-proven commercial processes and workflows and made our business better, and then we were able to apply that to our residential business. So instead of selling a job and going and figuring it out later, actually having a proven process for change orders, right? Is it a customer-based change order or is it an internal change order? That was one of the biggest things that Navigate taught us. We didn't even have a change order process. We lost money for a few years. We grew so fast and we were working quick and trying to get our jobs done. And if a customer wanted something, the technician would tell the project manager, the project, would tell the procurement person, and then we would order the TVs and we would forget to change order the client, and it was a big mess. So we learned a lot of hard lessons through that.
Yeah, so things like you said that can be applied to both ends of the business, which kind of leads into the next question that I had, which is, basically let's cover these last couple of years. Where led you to those recent awards among many awards that the company has had. But when the pandemic hit, how did logic integration adjust and adapt to both challenges and opportunities, because we've seen them on both sides, that it was a little bit of a roller coaster where you had commercial booming for a bit and then kind of waning, and then the smart home and home entertainment stuff picked back up when customers were looking for more networking and entertainment solutions. But certainly a lot of it involved the integrators themselves figuring out, okay, do I need to contact customers via Zoom now? How am I going to be let into their homes? What were some of the processes that you guys, adjusted for and adapted to?
Sure. So 2019, I think for most people was a really good year, right? We came off a great year, kicked off 2020, things were looking good. Everybody was excited, economy was doing well. And our commercial business was soaring. We were doing a lot of upgrades, things were going well all the way through almost June, July, things were going great. And then, commercial shut down hard. And then residential was a little weird. We did do a lot more Zoom and Teams and all the other platforms out there. We obviously had to get safety gear and talk about how we enter people's houses and expectations and all that. Most of our residential customers, they trust us, and it was really all about communication and expectations. And there was even unfairness with our staff. Like, why do our office folks and salespeople get to work from home, but all the technicians still have to go out and be at risk, right? There was a period where that was an issue, and that was really hard to navigate. But kudos to the technicians and project managers. I mean, they did it. They persevered. We actually didn't really have a lot of COVID sickness that year. But then when the offices shut down, that's when things got real. And even in 2021, our commercial business went way down. And then in late 2021, September, October, offices were supposed to open back up and everybody was supposed to come back. And that wasn't the case. And so, our commercial business was down, oh gosh, almost 50, 60%. And that was tough. But our residential business grew a lot, almost, I think, 50, 80%. So it kind of did that. But luckily we had a lot of repeat clientele that invested in their office space while no one was there. They had the cash and the resources and the smarts to plan ahead and upgrade a lot of their meeting spaces while people were out of the office. And that was pretty cool. We had a client that spent quite a bit of money with us, and we had been working with them for a couple of years. Our VP of sales, Tyler, it was his client. and they just kept doing, conference room after conference room at different buildings, even in different states, and that really kept us busy, and it was wonderful. It was a blessing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if most of your work is, kind of right around, local, or how far you're branching out to these things. And clearly on the commercial side, I would imagine, like you said, these guys are preparing for reopenings of offices, hybrid work situations now for most people. You and I are both talking from home right now. So it sounded like your commercial clients kind of understood what was going on, and maybe were a little bit proactive in terms of reaching out and
Yeah.
saying, hey, this is what we think we might need, or asking you, hey, what do we need for when this stuff reopens?
Yeah, and local government too. I'll hand it to them. They were already planning ahead with budgets and remodels and things like that. We did some water district facilities, some meeting spaces, training rooms, things like that during the height of COVID. No one was in the office, so our guys would come in and we would deploy, projectors and mics and control systems and all that. So that's kind of what kept us going. I mean, I think in 2020, our repeat, if you look at our sales by lead source, I think we were 71 or 72% of our revenue that year was repeat clientele. And then same thing in 2021, it was 65, 70% repeat clientele. And we still have a long ways to go on marketing and keeping in touch with those existing clients, because why go spend 400 to $1,000 on getting a new client when you already have customers, right? So the ROI, it's just it's laziness. I mean, we are definitely trying to do a better job at reaching past clients and staying in touch with them, especially if they have a service contract. It's a little easier.
Sure. And was that, when you're talking about those repeat clients, is that both commercial and residential? Because I
Yes.
want to ask you, so on the residential side, were you seeing and experiencing a lot of the same things then that we were, covering, in terms of, you know, people looking for, enterprise or at least better networks than they already had, and maybe using a lot of that disposable income that they weren't spending on travel and going out to eat, in terms of putting it back into their houses?
Yes, that is correct. We got an enormous amount of calls in the sales department and also the service department for network upgrades. It was obviously brilliant that Snap One acquired Access Networks. I mean, that was just a beautiful purchase. I'm very excited about that. We have really been engaging Access Networks and doing quite a bit of work with them. Um, but I don't know the number. I actually probably should look that up. What was the number of network upgrades that we did? And the good part was, when a homeowner was building a new home, a custom home, the conversation about Wi-Fi and the importance of the network and how it's the backbone for automation, that conversation was so much easier. You know, that's a good thing out of
It
COVID, I guess. Yeah.
it suddenly started to click, right? This is
Yeah.
important in our house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When you
definitely.
had mom and dad and the kids on the network all day long banging on it, and the quality of service wasn't there, definitely got some calls.
Sure. And what about things like, just the way that the rooms were, and people, creating better home offices, things like that? Um, were they doing that with, new and existing homes as well, from what you were designing and installing systems for?
I mentioned this when I did the resi commercial panel at the summit. We didn't have a bit as big of a take as we thought there would be. I know a lot of manufacturers came out with really cool products, sound bars and things like that. Crestron, we've done quite a few of those. We did some. There was a few C-level folks that wanted to broadcast from their home, do town hall meetings and communication and all that to all staff, but it wasn't a lot. It wasn't really measurable. There was definitely a handful that wanted to do a nice television with a sound bar or something like that, or maybe a lighting kit for Zoom or Teams to do the town hall stuff. But it wasn't a
Right.
big success for us, but for some others, probably was. Yeah.
Maybe some better, yeah, better quality video, better quality audio, things that you clearly had already, had expertise in, from all of those types of rooms that you were putting into, the offices, I would imagine.
Yeah, a lot of folks went the DIY route and bought stuff on Amazon. And if you remember, you couldn't get stuff on Amazon for a while or anywhere. A Logitech webcam and a mic and a headset like this was pretty rare. It's kind of like when we ran out of masks and toilet paper and everything else. But there were definitely a few folks that we would put a nice PTZ camera in, a microphone kit, but it really wasn't tied into the whole house automation or the control system. It was very separate. Crestron Flex or Crestron Mercury was a really good solution. We did a few of those in the C-level's office at home. The reality is there are multi-million and billion-dollar companies where the CEO would be on his little MacBook Air broadcasting to 20,000 employees using the MacBook mic. So it was kind of a top of mind thing. If our salespeople saw that, like, hey, did you know we could get you a better mic? But it wasn't a big top line revenue thing for us at all. It was very minor. So.
Gotcha. So in terms of starting off 2022 and just thinking about moving ahead and from this year and beyond, are there certain aspects of your business that you definitely learned some lessons or made some changes to the way things worked over these last couple of years that you are able to implement and rely on just moving forward?
So we're very, very focused on service. So we have a phenomenal service manager. His name's Jared. He's incredible. He's an answer to prayer. He's amazing, and the guys that work with him are absolutely amazing. So we're very focused on service. The break fix model, definitely proactive with our service level agreements. So reaching out to past clients and really growing the billable projects, continuing to grow our recurring revenue. So we've doubled our recurring revenue every year, and we're going to continue to do that. We've built an automated platform for billing and ticketing and all that kind of stuff. The other focus is really getting rid of our bottom 20% of customers. So whether they're high maintenance or low margin, or they always get multiple bids, or they always want to go with the least expensive solution. So as I mentioned in the commercial integrator interview, we're planning on flat growth or even shrinking a little bit, but we're going to grow our top line margin and our bottom line margin. Because if we can have happy customers and we can have happy employees and we profit, I think growth is an ego thing. Tyler, our VP of sales, have brought that up, and I'm like, man, that is very true. Top line growth is ego. You go to the trade shows and you talk about how much revenue you do and how great you are. It's not about that.
Yeah, you have to be smart about it, certainly. And let's just dig into the service part of it a little bit more, because that's an area where, certainly the commercial side, the security side has been way ahead of the residential side.
Very much.
But I imagine you're doing service in both the commercial and residential. But in terms of building that service department, figuring out how to talk to customers about service, how to implement it successfully, what has that taken, and what are some things that other integrators can learn from the way that you're tackling it?
Sure. It's taken us years. We've sold service contracts for probably 5 or 6 years and dabbled in it. But for the past 2 years, we've really, really taken it seriously. We set very clear and concise goals in our SWAT meetings, and it's the conversation is often. From the first intro call to the first site walk to our techs talking about it when they're finishing the rack and the customer comes by, like, hey, this is going to be a really awesome system. You guys are going to service all this, right? Or, how are you going to keep up with your software updates? If you install Crestron Home, that's important to keep it updated. What if your network crashes? Who are you going to call? All those conversations. So company culture, it comes down to company culture and accountability in these conversations, but we talk about it all the time, the value of having service, right? Not just for us to sell you something, but it's like a car or an HVAC system. You have to maintain it and you have to keep it up to date, keep it clean. And, would you rather call us when something breaks and you're in a panic, or would you rather be proactive about it? Or if you're going to have a big party and you're going to entertain, let's look at the system remotely a week in advance, or send a tech over there before you have your big party.
So it sounds like you're just constantly talking to customers, really keeping those lines of communications open, those expectations, a lot of it, I think, is setting the proper ones for them. And I think, especially from the residential side these days with supply chain issues, things like that, how important are those communications to the customers, particularly on the residential side, just to know what is going on out there, and what can be expected from logic integration and how they'll be dealing with them.
I think, well, real quick on the previous question too, we're very transparent. So when people come to our office and showroom, we show them the whole facility. We show them where we build the racks, where we commission everything, how we test all the video and audio zones. But we also show them, and we will even do it over Zoom, is we'll show them our back end. How are we managing our clients? How do we manage our tickets? What's our average response time? How do we work with a company like Parasol, right? They do an amazing job at remote support and all that. But how does it go from Parasol to our staff? How do we handle all those things? So we actually will log into the portal. We have hundreds of sites now, and we can show the customer all the different sites, and who needs software upgrades, who's online, how many devices, I mean, all that kind of stuff. So that's real quick on the service and support stuff. And then what was the question that you just asked me, Arlen?
Just in terms of talking about how much more important it is to have those communication lines
Communication.
open with the customers these days.
Yeah, so another lesson learned, we had a lot of customers that were frustrated last year, especially the second half, where we would sign a contract, talk about timeline, communication, especially commercial, where you better stick to your timeline, and things would slip and we didn't know when things were coming. And so after much feedback and some hand slapping from our customers, we've come out with a weekly purchase order report. So I think it was our procurement person, Gail, and project managers got together and said, hey, how do we communicate to our customers every week where their stuff is and when it's going to come? So we actually will send them a screenshot of our open purchase orders and the ETA on when products arrive. That's been a game changer. People really, really love that. They know. I mean, it's frustrating that they thought it was going to come in December and now it's not going to come till February, but at least they know now. The trick
Yeah,
for
that
us
makes a
is
lot of sense, certainly.
the trick for us is our warehouse is full, and we have 90 plus projects that are open. We usually carry about 40 to 50, and we can't finish the jobs because we're missing key components. But boy, if you can communicate to customers, most people are understanding. Most people don't have their head in the sand, and they know that there's a shortage of workers, parts, shipping logistics, all that stuff.
Sure. So really doing your part in terms of managing expectations and just figuring out that kind of part of the equation to keeping those customers satisfied and
Yep.
knowing where they stand with things.
Yep.
Shawn, going back to you had mentioned about showing customers the rack building process, the behind the scenes kind of things. I wanted to ask you, just because I remember going way back when you guys started to post some really awesome videos on YouTube, and way before I think it seemed that other companies were doing that in the residential space in particular, showing off projects, showing off your rack building, showing off your team members, things like that. And I wanted to ask you about just how your company got into that, and why a platform like video, and maybe pushing some of that stuff out to social media, doing that for a while now. What's worked well with that, and why, what kind of benefits have you found to that?
I'm trying to think how to answer this. Could be a long answer. I'm trying to make it short. So I had a couple friends through college that studied marketing, went to work in Silicon Valley in the Bay Area, and did graphic design and marketing for really large companies, and they were always encouraging me to push the bar. And then the flip side of that is I honestly had a number of family members and friends who really just didn't understand what I did. And so I would send them videos of, racks of equipment, and I don't even, I mean, maybe they still don't even know what I do, but I started videoing and taking pictures of that. And I've always loved taking photos and videos of things. It's my dad's fault. We take pictures of everything. I think I have 70 something thousand photos in my Google Cloud. It's ridiculous. But eventually it was, hey, have you guys ever done a theater room with, stars in the ceiling and seats? Oh yeah, yeah. I'd pull up the photos. So we kind of started building this archive. And even today, if someone wants to see a large boardroom or a training room that seats 200 people, we're able to quickly find it. But we all do such cool stuff in this industry, and I think we should show it to people. The expense of hiring a photographer or even a film crew, and you do drone footage of a project that you did recently, and being able to show it off, I just think it's so fun. I mean, Lee Travis with Y Plants up in Washington, he does a phenomenal job with marketing and video as well. And he also sets the bar in this industry. But I love if one of our salespeople is talking to a client and they're going to spend $200,000, and it's a Crestron home system or a Control4 system, let's send them a video of a job we just did 3 months ago.
Yeah, so
Helps the sales process.
it sounds like that you would advocate for more companies doing this, and that clearly you've seen some benefits from it.
Yeah, yeah, and before we could afford to hire a film crew, I used to do it myself. I mean, I went and bought a drone and learned how to fly the drone and flew it inside the house sometimes and almost hit things. Do it when the customer's not home. But photography is tricky. I mean, you definitely got to know what you're doing when you're shooting interiors and all that. But you can hire a photographer. There's so many different resources online. You can hire a photographer for $400 to $800 to go shoot your job and submit it to CE Pro and win some awards. So that's kind of what we've done. Just try to show off your work.
Yeah, and it looks like the YouTube channel, there's lots of subscribers, so clearly there's people. It's another way for people to find you guys as well, right?
Yeah, and obviously Google Analytics loves good content, right? Their job is to get the right content to the people as fast as possible. So, keywords and hashtags, if you shoot a video, put in the hashtags, what's in the video? Is there origin acoustics? Is there snap stuff? Like, we try to involve all our partners, right? We try to talk about manufacturers as partners because they really are partners. They support us, we support them. So we use a lot of keywords and tagging. That helps.
Great. Shawn, I want to get back, just to kind of circle back around to your team. You know, as far as building the best team to handle the types of, the widely varied projects that you guys do, and put together all sorts of award-winning work, and just having an award-winning company. I know you guys have been uh, recognized within Colorado as a leading company to work for. What are the keys to finding, attracting, and keeping the right people there? Certainly that's been a real struggle for a lot of companies out there.
Mainly bribing people on Craigslist. Just kidding.
That's one way to go about it.
We had some pretty high turnover in 2016 and 2017. Those some rough years. I brought my wife in actually to do some administrative work, and she slowly started sitting in on some interviews, and we started to figure out pretty quick she had a knack with people. So my wife, actually, I will credit her to the team we have and the people we have. We've had very low turnover over the past few years and have such awesome people. She spends an enormous amount of time interviewing people. We've used very little recruiters. It was kind of the, we're busy, hurry up and hire and slow to fire system. And now we're the other way around. We're trying to be the other way around. We're very slow to hire and quick to fire. And I think she has good antennas. I like to say she spends a lot of time on the front end getting to know people. We do group interviews, so we have them come in after 2 or 3 interviews and actually sit with our team and spend some time with our team. And they have the ability to weed some bad people out. Not perfect, but I think that's been the key. And then the other thing is we do events every quarter. So you probably saw in the commercial integrator thing that we did sumo wrestling.
Right. I was going
And
to say, once you have the right people, it's keeping them. And so that is the morale boosting, the company culture, things like that.
yeah,
So yeah, any advice that you have there for integrators out there who are saying, all right, I think we've got some great people. We don't want a lot of turnover. What can we do to keep them around?
we my wife has come up with some pretty crazy ideas. So when we did the sumo suits, we rented big sumo suits in the middle of summer in Colorado. That was it was the first person was fine, but the second person who got to get in the sumo suit was all sweaty. It was disgusting. But we spend time with our employees. She rented a life-size Hungry Hippo, and we played Hungry Hippo in a giant inflatable. So she just spends an enormous amount of time researching the goofiest things to do with people. And we've just found that spending time with our employees, I mean, they're the ones who make it all happen. They're the ones talking to the customers, they're the face of the company. Spending time with the people and just thanking them and giving them a good time. And we don't just order pizza and say thanks. We actually will shut down for a half a day and go do something fun together, right? You work hard, you play hard together. That's been really good for us.
Great. Well, as a key to success, that sounds like a great note to end things on. Some good words of wisdom there. And so for Shawn Hansson, multi-award-winning company Logic Integration, we really appreciate your time joining the CE Pro podcast and offering up all these keen insights.
Thank you. Appreciate it.